Welcome back. Today we are going to talk about Bestiarum Games and their Tormentor Cult Kickstarter campaign. You've probably heard me talk about Bestiarum Games before. I absolutely love their STLs. They've been active for a few years now, and I've been in love since the first time I stumbled across their My Mini Factory page, and I have thrown various monstrosities and creations of theirs at my players in D&D pretty consistently. It's happened a lot. In fact, this is nothing to do with the actual Kickstarter, but I printed one of their things to show off a 3D printer that we're going to talk about tomorrow. I just can't help myself. If I've got an opportunity to print something of theirs, generally speaking, that's exactly what I do. However, when we've talked about them in the past, when we've covered some of their different ranges, one of the things that has come up a couple of times is people saying, I like this, but I don't have a 3D printer, so there's no easy way for me to get hold of it, which, to be fair, is a fairly common complaint when covering 3D printing based, like, miniature lines, ranges, that sort of thing. However, because they're doing the Tormentor Cult on Kickstarter in both physical and STL form, that means that if something catches your fancy from this lot, you can actually just go and get them yourself. You don't have to print them at home, you won't have to buy a 3D printer or ask someone else to print for you, you will just get those miniatures. Specifically, these miniatures. Not just these. There are a good number of minis in this range, and they all look absolutely fantastic. I am, of course, biased because I already like the stuff they do. Plus, this Tormentor Cult range is based off what they did for their first welcome pack, which was the Jailer. Now, the Jailer is... I've just got a soft spot for it because it's the first bust I ever printed. I've got him right here. I never finished the base, I'm realising now, which is kind of daft because I've had this for absolutely ages, but the Jailer himself is mostly done. I just don't know what to do with the inside of the mouth. But yeah, this is the first bust I ever printed, so the fact that the Tormentor Cults have come out of the model that the bust is from, just gives me a nice warm feeling, you know? Now, before we get into looking at the miniatures that they sent over for me to check out, it's worth pointing out that when it comes to the resin they've used, there's a couple of differences. So, the larger miniatures are printed for durability. When you've got something that's quite chunky, quite big, you want it to be nicely strong, but the smaller miniatures are designed to be a bit more flexible. So they can be bent, they can be shifted a bit, but they will spring back to the shape that they should be. So if you're concerned about the miniatures being like completely brittle or falling apart if you drop them or anything like that, that's unlikely to happen, especially with the smaller ones. Now, let's take a look at the models themselves, because you all know that that's where my heart lies, don't you? We will start with a lad in charge in the form of the Herald of Agony, and funnily enough, look, you already know, I already said in the intro how much I love Bestiarum Games, because I really do like their sculpts. But yeah, this is an instant classic for me. We've got the Bishop's hat. Is it the mitre? I think it's a mitre it's called. But we have the added bonus of some metal reinforcement around the edges, which sort of gives an additional creep factor to it. As if you needed additional creep factor when there are also 6 arms attached via metal bands to the torso of this lad. I mean, they're not his arms. That's one of the things I really like. Yet you didn't need that clarification. You already knew it wasn't his arms. That's one of the things I really like about the silhouette for this model, because the first time I glanced at it, I thought, well, that is someone who somehow has got 8 arms. What is going on there? And then, of course, you get closer, you look a bit closer, and it is technically true. There are 8 arms. Only 2 of them were originally his, which immediately takes it up a notch from kind of, oh, that's sinister and scary, to, oh, that's brutal and sinister and scary. Really nice little sort of evolution there as you suddenly realise what's actually going on. We've got some really nice kind of damaged cloth robes as well. Those look great. And a cloak. You gotta have a good cloak. And for some reason, the length of the hair really stands out to me as well. Like, it really stands out. It kind of suggests a lack of care towards certain aspects of, like, appearance. I'm not suggesting that if you've got long hair, you don't care about what you look like. I mean specifically in the context of someone who has got a bunch of arms sticking out, who has got like a bishop's mitre on their head, and who is in a position of authority, just letting it all go. Just letting it all go. No regular trims. Just let it grow out. I don't know why, I just really like that. I have to admit, part of me is wondering whether that's even his hair. I mean, let's be honest, could easily just be attached to the inside of the mitre. It could just be attached to the inside of that hat. It's possible, you know? Yeah, I really, really like this. The print quality is really, really good as well. Now, I've tried to set this up in such a way that we can see how good the print quality is, and I think to be fair, we can. There are a few little marks of separation from the supports there, but nothing particularly egregious, and to be honest, there's marks, but once it's primed, you wouldn't even see those, I don't think. I mean, it's far cleaner than I usually manage when I'm removing supports off mine. And I try to be really careful. I'm just not very good at it. But yeah, it's super, super clean. Nothing really in the way of layer lines or anything. It looks really, really good. We've also got blood altars as well. This is the kind of terrain I absolutely love. It's so awful. Like, it's so gross and grim and like carved rock for all the blood to pool in. You've still got skulls sitting there from the last lot of victims. Full-on intestines on show there. Plus, you'll note the lack of lower legs on that lad. Lack of leg on that one as well. I think one arm might be gone there too. You can really get a good feel for the horrendous practices of this group just by looking at one piece of scenery. One piece of scenery and the Herald of Agony, and you know full well what this lot are about, which is great. I really like the texture on this as well. Lots of nice texture going on. Lots of nice texture. And that also has the added bonus of meaning that there's not much in the way of like totally flat surfaces, which is often where, when it comes to 3D prints, you see a lot of the more noticeable lines and stuff, but none of that on this. While I think about it, when I got these, this is basically how they arrived. So we had individual bases and the fully printed models, and then it was just a case of sticking one on top of the other. I mean, typically, you want to stick the model on the base, not the other way around. Again, why clarify that? You know what I mean. But yeah, it might be that you'd prefer to paint them without the base, which would have been an option when they arrived. And just in case you were in any doubt as to the sort of practices going on, this is one of the cultists, and he's got a nice offering. Got a nice offering for you. Would you like somebody else's leg? I mean, for most of us, the answer is probably no, but I really, really like this. I really like the sculpt. The sculpt looks great. The overall design of the cultist is like, I'll describe it as being like very classic. We've got like loose robes, sort of rope-like cinching belts and the like, but they all have this really emaciated, almost skeletal look to them. Like, that is not the face of someone who is getting like 3 good meals a day, you know? On a similar note, we have a nice offering of a bunch of skulls in a bowl full of blood. It's really gruesome in the best way. I do like the detail of the hood being pulled back as well. That's really nice. Now, obviously, not all the cultists are just offering stuff. We do also have ones with weapons as well, although this guy has got a head in his other hand, but he does also have this really quite horrible meat hook looking thing going on as well. Again, you can really see how kind of like emaciated they are, especially around the face. Something I really like about this guy as well is that it looks like the hood is almost separate, like placed on over the top of the robe. It's just a nice touch. Also all barefoot as well. I don't know whether there was the idea of like this sort of self-flagellation thing going on at the same time as the nicking other people's body parts, but walking across rocky ground with no shoes cannot be good for you. We've got a few different weapons as well, so we've got a couple of like what, butcher's knives, I guess, on this guy. I was going to say daggers. They're not daggers. They're just fully, like, knives, aren't they? Going with the classic, like, hood covering the top half of the face as well, which I love that. I absolutely love that. For a start, it's less of the face to paint for me, since I don't like painting faces. But also, there's just something extra menacing about a dude who has got a hood over the eyes. If we get him super close, again, you can see that the quality of the prints are really, really good. Done a really good job with them. Also have an extremely enthusiastic cultist who's absolutely going for it. Love this guy. I just love the pose. I absolutely love the pose. It stands out a lot amongst the others, but in a good way. You've got a lot of kind of skulking, crouching, like there's a lot of offering up, that sort of thing. But this guy is just fully ready to go. And the sense of movement off the cloth is really, really nice. Proper angry face as well. Look at that. We've also got some good two-handed weapon rep here as well. I don't know that this guy could physically lift this. Look at the emaciation on this model. Like, it's done so well. You can see all like the ribs. There's like a sort of wiry strength going on, but then also around the midriff. Just so like sunken in. It's really, really nicely done. I also really like how kind of battered the weapons are, how some of them don't really look like weapons that would even work properly anymore. They feel very like ramshackle and just grabbed from wherever possible and like bent and broken, and they match the aesthetic of like the robes and the rope and the like tattered hoods really, really well. That is just a great model. It's just so much character. Just looks so determined. So determined. Now, I believe this is a Brute Warden. I'm not 100% sure because the one in the material that they sent over has got a different loadout, but I think that's what this is. He fits size-wise, so if we look at him next to one, the Cultist, he is a big, beefy boy. I'm assuming he's eating their rations because that is quite the contrast in physique right there. His two-handed axe is more sensible than the two-handed axe wielded by the Cultist, but I actually quite like that. His looks more functional and less like a piece of junk that has just been salvaged and stuck on a stick. Like, his looks actually capable of doing things to people. He's got the Executioner's hood thing going on, which is really nice. Again, got the same kind of robe and rope thing going on, but his, I would argue, looks a little less battered, like a little less frayed. Obviously, he's kind of spilling out of it at the front somewhat, but like when you look at the cuffs especially, they're not as damaged as the ones on the Cultists. And he has to have been growing that beard out for quite a while as well. If we get him super close, get him really close up. Yeah, that looks really good. So clean. Such clean prints. I love it. It's not just lads though, we've also got these little friendly critters with spikes embedded in their flesh and what looks like another spinal column and ribs growing into the out of them. They're pretty horrific. Pretty horrific. I do like the big metal like cage over the top of the head. That's quite fun. Yeah, probably alarming little fella this. Looks great. Naturally I saved the biggest for last, so this is the Collector Demon, and this is a normal lad next to said Collector Demon. Oh, he's a chunky boy. He's a horrific, nightmarish chunky boy. Funnily enough, I absolutely love the Collector Demon. The Collector Demon is fantastic. Went together pretty well. I have to admit, there is a bit of a gap in the top there between the two halves of the Collector Demon. So this arrived essentially, these two halves were separate and the limbs were off. Really easy to put together, wasn't particularly challenging to do, but there's definitely a little bit of a gap over the top. But something that I tend to do when I'm putting together 3D prints is have, now, I used to do like liquid green stuff, but it's not really that good for this. Now instead what I have is a little bottle of like UV resin. So a little bottle of UV resin plus a little UV pen, and you can put that in the gaps and then seal it up, and that does a way better job than trying to fill it with like liquid green stuff and stuff. It's honestly not terrible. I mean, stuff that I've printed has come out with way bigger gaps than that, like by far. That's just something that comes along with it. Plus, to be fair, how many times have we built vehicles from the most well-known miniatures company on the planet and had to use stuff to fill gaps on that? I don't know about you, but it's happened to me plenty of times. Anyway, the Collector Demon, so many little details. Look at all the poor sods stuck in there. Look at them. Little hands reaching out, the legs dangling down. Some of them look like they've already died or have given up, but others are still reaching out of this kind of mess of metalwork with skin growing over the top of it. Same on the other side. Oh, I love it. I love this. This is my sort of thing. This is the thing, right? This is the thing with Bestiarum Games. Quite frequently, I will look at what they've made, and I will just think, I absolutely would have done that. Or I'll look at something and go, I was planning to do that, but they've already done it, so now I'll just print it and sort of kit bash it. It's alarming, it's alien, it has one too many legs, or potentially one too few legs, depending on how you look at it. Way too many arms, and in fact some of the arms have got too many hands. I can't get enough. I absolutely love this thing. It's so good. Also, the base. The base is really nice. Little like environmental details, like the kind of curved broken metal and the wood there. Bits of old cage there. Little stuff like that, really, really like it. Great stuff. And again, gap in construction aside, if we actually look at the print itself, it's quite a big print. There's a lot of like kind of detailed but consistent surface area, and it looks pretty damn good to me. I think it's fair to say that the miniatures look good. Not just the designs, not just the detailing, but also the prints themselves. Thing is, it's not just a case of here's a bunch of miniatures, they're also compatible with a few different systems, so they're compatible with 5th edition. Bestiarum Games actually produces rules for their factions that are usable within 5th edition and adventures in which to place them, which is really, really good. I think they're also part of Forbidden Psalm as well, which is another game. And they have their own background, they have their own lore. If you want to get them and stick with what they've been written for, you absolutely can. In fact, you can see right here, in the shadowy corners of the realm the Tormentor cults rise, a gathering of the deranged and the damned, united in their worship of a dark entity from beyond our reality, a terrible and mighty lord, whose domain is built upon the anguish and suffering of uncountable mortal souls. Like their dark master, the Tormentor cults revel in pain and despair. Their rituals are steeped in madness and cruelty, seeking to draw out dark things from the prison realm, horrors too ghastly for mortal minds to fathom. That is my sort of thing. Hell yes. Now, as I said before, it's not just the miniatures that I was sent, there are others that are part of this range, and they look so good. From the jailer himself to the caged, I mean the collector demon is fantastic, the giant walking prison ship is immense, and I absolutely need it in my life. There's a link to the Tormentor Cults Kickstarter page in the description and in the pinned comment down below, as is tradition. Go and check them out. Thank you very much to Bestiarum Games for sending me some lovely lads and a horrendous demon to take a look at. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you for the next one.